What's good, folks? Family, friends, loved ones, enemies, frenemies, wizards, witches, muggles, mudbloods, people of Middle Earth to another episode of Disguise Coverage, the only podcast that gives you an equal amount of blueberries in each muffin, presented by the best pizza in Buffalo, New York. That is One Pie Pizza. Find the online menu in the episode show notes, whether here on YouTube or whichever podcasting app or platform you're listening to this show on. I am your host, Anthony Prohaska. Find me on Twitter at pro__ant. That's pro2_ANT. Find me on Blue Sky at pro_ant. No underscores there, just PROANT over on the Blue Sky. In this episode of Disguise Coverage, we are less than 48 hours away from the official start of the 2025 NFL Draft. Round 1 is this upcoming Thursday night, and then we've got rounds 2 and 3 on Friday night, and then the rest of the draft on Saturday. And in accordance with that, we are going to be diving into a theme in this episode that we did last year with the exact same guest that I'm excited to run back this year. And if you didn't know what was happening based on the title or the episode description, or if you didn't know who the guest was by reading the episode description, you will see that shortly. What we're going to be doing in this episode is building the perfect and or ideal, whatever verbiage you want to use, Buffalo Bills 2025 NFL draft class. We will be diving into specific players, positional needs for this team, positional values, juxtaposing, if you go at this position here, what does it look like to go down the board later? Our evaluations, rankings, anything and everything that would lead us to have a discussion of how and why we would come to the conclusion of what our perfect Buffalo Bills 2025 NFL draft would look like. And in having that conversation, as I mentioned, this person was my guest last year for this same topic. He is my guest again this year for this topic. Welcoming to the show, Mr. Joe Marino of Locked On Bills. Very busy man this time of year. So Joe, like I said to you offline, I'm very grateful that you took the time. Welcome to the show. How you doing?
I'm good, man. Good to be with you. Good for it to be draft week. Good for the hours to be passing us by to get closer to this thing, man. I'm ready for these players to be picked. I'm ready to relearn the league, understand the direction of the Bills. One thing that you said there, I totally remember doing this last year. I don't remember what I said. Is there any chance that you had like the ideal? I hate to put you on the spot right now, but I'd love to know what I said.
You know what's funny? I don't remember. What I do remember, and I thought it was this draft, but it wasn't because the years were different. I actually think this is the third consecutive year we did it, because I remember the first time we did it, we disagreed on Tank Dell. And that's the only thing that not really disagreed, but we talked about, I liked him a bit more. We talked about the outliers, how small he was, yada, yada. So I think this is actually the third year in a row that we've done it. But my brain is fried now at this point. So no. And I thought of going back and looking at it, but then I was like, well, if it's not great, then I have to know that internally I'm lying about it. So I kind of kept my head in the sand on this one. So no, I did not go back.
All right. Well, I'm going to have to do that. It's part of my killing time between now and Thursday night. See what I said last year and compare.
That's fair. Yeah, we'll go through and do that and see. I feel like you'll go into it in 2 minutes and be like, "Oh, this is terrible. I don't want to know this at all."
Oh yeah, I might turn that off real quick. But if it sounds good, I might cash in some receipts. You know what I mean?
Right. Look how predictive I was and how well this worked out. Look at me.
Right.
Oh, how it turns out. So I guess in accordance with that, for this episode, this draft class, and going into the 2025 season, how did you have a starting point for building your ideal or perfect Bills draft class? Did it start with a particular player in mind, or did it start with a specific positional hierarchy or kind of the value propositions of positions versus different positions? How did you start, kind of high level without giving too much away? How did you kind of put your board together for this episode?
Yeah, it's mostly leaning into my own personal preferences as to certain players at positions that I think are most important, while being mindful of kind of the depth of the class and where I think the talent cliffs are at those positions. So prioritizing needs, but also factoring in talent cliffs. So that way I can position myself to get exactly what I want. And that's really what went into it. It's a lot of personal bias. I'm not going to lie to you. I think that's something that was weighing heavily on the way that I'm building my own personal ideal Bills draft.
Yeah, that's That's one for me that I think is such a core. And really, anytime I do, even if it's like a mock that I'm just doing for fun while I'm like waiting in line at the car wash or something like that, like everything for me is, like you said, tied to what the Bills need or like a specific player that you might like. But it's all you call it talent cliffs, which I love. I always call it the value proposition, but it's essentially, it's literally not even essentially, it's the same thing. Like, okay, if I need these two positions, how can I get the best value out of both of them? If I go position A right now, that means I got to go B later. What does B look like later? And then you might have somebody at position A that you like a lot, but the value is still good later. So you're like, even though I love this guy at this position, I'm going to go with position B because I can still kind of mitigate the difference between who I like in A and what that. And these exercises are always so fun, but I can't imagine being in like an actual like war room in the draft. Like it would just stress me out to like no degree. Like even just preparing for this, I was like, I kind of knew where I was going, but like putting it officially on the record for myself, I was like stressed out. And I can't imagine like my actual livelihood being attached to it.
Well, you just naturally fall in love with different prospects too. And there's the hard reality of you're just not going to get them all. You're not even going to get most of them. You're only going to get some, maybe a couple, right?
Yep.
So that's the other reality of this is you put so much work into it and ultimately you're only going to get a few players, hopefully, that you really like.
Yeah. Quick question for you, Alfred. All something you just said, and because I think about this for myself all the time. There's how do you juxtapose or kind of work in not necessarily bias, but what you like or what you look for individually or personally in a prospect versus like kind of what is objectively good. Like I'll give you an example, like receiver, for instance, right? Like I tend to gravitate towards guys like with really great stem work and great release packages. Now, I also value other things like, oh, sweet, can you win contested catches downfield? What kind of long speed do you have? So on and so forth. But I gravitate towards guys, and I always have to not necessarily fight, but make sure like I don't overvalue those guys on my board because of my personal preference. Is that, and you've been doing this for so long, is that something that you kind of just figured out how to compartmentalize, or does it work into your overall evaluations kind of naturally or purposefully at this point?
Yeah, there's definitely going to be my own preferences at each position that are going to factor in. Just there's nothing I can do about it. But I think what I always try to go back to is for as much as I might prefer different styles or different body types, the reality is at every position, there's a lot of different ways to get it done. And so what I try to do is I look at my scouting process very much through the lens of risk assessment. And so what about this player? What characteristics do they have? And then from there, comparing it against historical norms and then giving myself the most likely outcome that's going to lead to a hit. And so, of course, I'm going to care most about the things that I care most about, but I still have to foil it all together to ask myself the question, does this track? Like, does this skill set, does this profile work in the NFL? And if it does, how valuable is it? And then that's how you get to your grades. So I think that's my best way of certainly being mindful of the things that I care most about, but being mindful of what works in the NFL. And I think particularly like a pass rusher, where I think we love, dude, is there anything more sexy than a guy getting off the ball quick, bending and running a circle around an offensive tackle? Is there anything better than that? Well, guess what doesn't really happen in the NFL? Right? You got to be able to shave angles. You got to be able to play through contact and play through blocks. So it's hard sometimes to be like, oh, I think this pass rusher is really stiff. Okay, well, can they play through angles? Do they have good contact balance? Do they have length? Do they have a natural feel for angles in how they rush? Because that's really important. It probably matters a lot more than the guy that can just run a circle around a guy, because that doesn't really translate to the same degree. So it's a lot of that, man, figuring these guys out and how valuable whatever they do is.
Very well said. I operate with a similar philosophy to a degree of kind of, I've always look at a guy, and it's similar to kind of what I do in fantasy football. I'm very much like a high floor type of guy. And when it comes to prospect evaluation, I'm always like, okay, like if this player comes in to the league or to a team, what do I think they're like, no, quote unquote, but what do I think he can hang his hat on forever or immediately? Is it one thing? Is it two things? If it's just this one thing, okay, like I know he can be great at this thing without thinking of anything else. Oh, his ceiling, or if he goes to the right landing spot, or if he forget all that. I always think of like, what can what can this player hang his hat on? And then that kind of factors in as well. And I always just chalk it up kind of like a high floor, because there's so much, and it gets talked about every cycle, but there's, man, like the amount of variables that go into what a player becomes, like their individual makeup, the makeup of the organization they go into, both culturally and schematically, and then everything that just snowballs from there, positively and negatively. There's so much that goes into what a guy ends up becoming that it's so, I mean, it's why coaches and GMs and scouts get rotated around in different spots. Like the draft is such an inexact science in every way, shape, and form. And it all goes back to, man, I just can't imagine having to be like, yeah, man, I'm betting my job on this like 21-year-old to come out and do this thing that I need him to do for my job.
Yeah, and there's so much that goes into that. I love how you made this bigger than just what you can learn from watching tape, looking at measurables, athletic profiles, production profiles, because these are real people, and real people are all different. And we've all worked jobs in our life. You've seen how even you might interview somebody or meet somebody and you see the way that they work. It's different, right? And that's not different in football, right? These are still regular people that have tendencies, and we don't get to really meet these guys. We don't really get to find out what their football IQ is, talk to people that have been around them for the last few years. And the thing that nobody knows is what's going to happen when you are all of a sudden a young 20-year-old man and you suddenly have more money and time than you've ever had in your entire life. How do you respond to that? Nobody knows, man. And all of those things are very critical in determining what type of professional NFL football player they're going to be. And so that's why I give myself a lot of grace, man. Do I get it all right? No, I certainly don't. But there's also a lot of layers to this that I don't have that makes it very difficult for me to, really, really project guys. And so I think it's important that people know, like, hey, these opinions and these evaluations are based on film, measurables, athletic testing, production profiles, and that's it. I don't know anything about these people as people. You read stuff, but you don't know.
It's funny too. I've said what I'm about to say. I've said this so much this draft cycle. I feel like more than previous ones, even though I know I've said it previously too. And we watch the tape, we get the all 22, and we dive into it. I wish I had like all 22 for the top 30 visits, or the interviews at the combine, or like anything that could just give me a peek into a player's character makeup or personality makeup, because that is what separates them once you get to the league. Like, and granted, everybody's got, hands in different buckets, but once you get to college and then further, when you get to the NFL, everybody's good at football. Everyone's big, everyone's fast, like everyone's strong, like, but it's that mental makeup that separates the bad from the mad from the good from the great, and the great from the Hall of Fame. And it's tied to so many things, like how you see the game, how you understand it, but your work ethic. Like, do you already have a routine tied into it? Does the team that brings you in, like, support that routine? Do they have to instill it? Do you clash with your position coach? Does your position coach not like you as a person? Like, that gets lost so much too. Like, at the end of the day, it's still a job. And just like regular people with regular lives, you might hate your boss. Your boss might hate you. And in this case, your boss might be your position coach, or maybe your boss loves you, but his boss, you're a CB, your direct report, your secondary coach, he loves you, but his boss, the defensive coordinator, hates your guts. Maybe
totally possible.
Like all those little layers. And then does that sour you a little bit? And there's just so many layers from that like aspect. And that's why I always, every year I'm always like, man, I wish I love the post-draft content when teams select guys and then they put out the videos of what their interview looked like with them at the combine, the little nuggets. We've seen the Keon Coleman ones, the Kyrie Elam, so on and so forth, and all these teams do it. I wish like there was like a black market film for that, like in February and March and April, to help us further our evaluations and round everything out to really know what these guys are between the years, because there's so much of that we'll never know just by watching the tape and breaking it down. It's a great point.
Yeah, the Gruden QB camps. Have you get a chance to watch any of them? Oh, brother, just need one of those on every single player. We'll be fine. We'll get it figured out real quick, man. Those are awesome. Those are awesome.
I was watching I was watching Kyle McCord break down their RPO stuff. and how like everything is adjusted based on like if the receiver gets pressed and how he stems the route and changes it from slant. And then, but even if the corner is like in press, if he takes an inside release and the corner tries to mash it, he converts that slant to a go, and just how reactive it is. And then I think it was Riley Leonard who was breaking everything down on like the cadence with the claps and how fake it was and all the details. Man, yeah, that
so good.
Oh, so good. So good. Joe, I hope this episode goes so good. We're going to pivot now to the meat of this episode, the crux of this episode. For those who don't know, Joe and I will be building our perfect and or ideal Buffalo Bills 2025 draft class. For those of you joining us live here, if you are joining us live, one, thank you very much for being here live. Two, drop a like on this video if you are willing and able and would be so kind. Likes are the lifeblood of these streams. And also, if you are watching live, feel free to play along with us. Let us know who are your ideal targets, what your ideal draft class looks like, what you think of our picks as we go throughout the rounds and the days and the players and all of that, whether you got positional likings, player likings, preferences, priorities, whatever you got, put it up into the chat. Let us know, build some engagement with the chat, and then I will pull up anything and everything as physically possible for us to engage with as we go forward. Joe, you are the guest. The floor is yours. We are going to start with pick 30 in round one. Obviously, what does that pick in round one look like for you when you were starting out building your perfect Buffalo Bills 2025 draft class?
Well, obviously, the perfect pick would be Abdul Carter falling to number 30. But with that out of the way, my silly joke, sorry.
I like it.
Yeah, that was lame. Travis Hunter would be fine, too.
Yeah, that's fine. I'll take him. It's okay.
Yeah, these good picks. So, of course, having a level of reality to this conversation.
Yes.
I do look at this Bills team with three primary needs, and you could debate the order, but D tackle, a corner, and D end, I think, are the most important things for this football team. And that's how I want to see the Bills attack these first three picks.
Okay.
And being mindful of talent cliffs and the way that I see it, I think there's a lot of value at the defensive end position. That's kind of the one I feel comfortable waiting on, and feeling like at 62, I can get a player that I'm going to like. Where I get a little bit more nervous is at D tackle and corner, but I have a little bit more depth at corner in terms of players that I really like. And so with this being Joe Marino's ideal scenario for the Bills, I want to get this defensive tackle situation figured out. AP, if the Bills played a game right now, and they're not playing a game right now. Let's establish that.
Sure.
But with Larry Ogunjobi suspended for the first 6 games of the season, this D tackle rotation is Ed Oliver, Daquan Jones, Zion Logan, Dwayne Carter. We can't go to war with that. We cannot go to war with that. You know what I mean? Especially because Ed's going to play 60%. Daquan's going to play 50, 55%. There's a lot of snaps right there for Carter and Logue. And I just feel like those players have not shown me enough to feel comfortable. So I have a lot of concern for this D tackle position. And really what I'd love to do is be able to get somebody that can pair with Daquan Jones this year, to round out all those one tech snaps, but then have a successor in place with Daquan aging last year of his deal. You like to be able to kind of help yourself now and in the future. And so I would love for the Bills to get that type of player. Now I'm particular about that type of player. I don't want to get just a big guy that can't move or defend not just a run defender. Of course I want a run defender, but I want a guy that can do the most important thing, which is make plays behind the line of scrimmage. And I know this is a player that we might not see eye to eye on, but this is my ideal draft. And I'm picking Kenneth Grant out of Michigan. I'm telling you right now, I'm fully prepared for Kenneth Grant to be on the board at pick 30 and the Bills not to pick him. Like I'm not exactly sure or convinced that this is a player that the Bills like as much as I do. For me, he's the number 15 player on my board. So you can understand why I'd be ecstatic about him at pick 30. I think he's just really unique. He is huge. He's 330 pounds, but he's got a lot of movement skills that really get me excited, particularly lateral movement skills. And, I love watching him pursue backside and get outside the tackles and make these plays down the line of scrimmage. And, I think that there's an unrealized pass rush ceiling that he has as well, where, I don't want to get nuts, but there's different types of nose tackles. And the ones that you want are the DJ Readers, the Vita Vegas, the Dexter Lawrence, those types of guys. Those are the ones that are really valuable. And I think that Dexter Lawrence has a ceiling that can kind of give you that type of player if it all comes together. I'm not going to sit here and act like everything is great and amazing with Kenneth Grant. I think he's got to play with better pad level to really maximize his power at the point of attack. I do think he has to flesh out his pass rush repertoire. But I love the package here. I love the ceiling. I love the physical upside. And that's what I'm looking for. I want guys that have a chance to be a difference maker. And I feel like Kenneth Grant does have that type of ceiling. And so for me, that's a direction I would just be over the moon with if that's where the Bills went with pick 30. Predictively, I don't think they're going to, but that's my ideal first round pick.
It's fun. I don't like to kind of think about like, oh, who's someone going to take or who's someone going to pick. So I don't want it to influence anything for me. But in my head, like all day, I was like, I feel like he's going to have Grant in round one. It's kind of like where my head was going. And I avoid, like I said this on the show before, I avoid as much draft content from the world as I can because I don't want anyone to influence, like even if it's conscious or like subconsciously, I don't want anyone to influence my thoughts or my evaluations or my board. So I avoid everything from the world until I'm done. And I'm a little late this year, so I've avoided kind of everything. But yeah, I had a feeling you would go with Grant a little bit because I DM'd you about him a couple weeks ago. I like Kenneth Grant, and I've said it on the show. You know, and honestly, I agree with your evaluation completely. The thing I disagree with, and it's not necessarily from you, I hear a lot from fans and even from evaluators that talk about him like he's just this, like drop him in the middle of your defense and he's a cure-all for like everything you have going on against the run and the pass. And I don't think he is that, specifically from the run standpoint. I think he plays more towards, for being a bigger guy, he plays towards more of the penetration and the athleticism that he can kind of have, which is also awesome. Like watching him hit that quick swim move that he seems to do like every single game on the snap. And you just watch some guard face plant and then he takes 2 steps and explodes into the backfield is making a play. It's just, it's really nice to see. And there are times I've watched so many games on him. I've watched 9 games on him because every time I think I'm solid, I see somebody like, or I get in the back of my mind, man, have I really seen everything? Am I off on this? And I like him. I think the ceiling is exciting, like you talked about, because he has traits that you shouldn't be able to move like that at like 330 pounds. And it's not like a fake 330, like, oh, but he really weighs like 315. No, he hits a real 330. He plays at that 330 and he moves. He's got good lower body, like flexibility to be able to like turn and move. He can adjust. There was one that I posted today against, I don't remember who was against, but him and Mason Graham met at the quarterback and he goes through the center, but the center tries to like push him out towards the right guard. And he's able to put his left foot in the ground and have some ankle flexion and repivot. And instead of getting kind of ridden upfield and around the quarterback, he's able to turn and then go through the guard on his way to the QB. And it's just that type of movement with the size that's so intriguing. I like Kenneth Grant. I don't love him as much as you. I would not be disappointed if they took him at 30. I've always just kind of thought, I guess as we've gone forward, I think there's been a higher chance in my mind that I think he could be there. I always just kind of thought both he and Derek Harmon would be off the board by 30. And now that we've gotten closer, I think there's a chance. I still think it's a smaller chance that Harmon is there. I do think there's a chance that Grant is there at 30. But to your point, I could see the Bills passing, which is also intriguing. And I feel like so many fans I feel like that would kill the fan base. So many fans I feel like are on that train. It could at night one, if he's there and they pass on him, I feel like that would set people crazy.
Yeah, I think Bills Mafia, get prepared for. I mean, honestly, it's pick 30. Like, don't be married to certain outcomes. That's just a surefire way to get yourself disappointed, man. So I mean, I feel like I'm probably one of the leaders in the clubhouse for the excitement over Kenneth Grant, and maybe there's a lot of influence there. And I mean, I can't deny the way that I feel, but I also am not fully convinced he'll be the Bills pick, even if they have the opportunity to pick him.
Yeah, that's fair. But yeah, I would not be opposed to him, being there around one. My 2 biggest things, and you mentioned both of them, just playing a bit high and or like upright at times. I think it's kind of caught with a narrow base as well. And I think that kind of like results in like some of the horizontal displacement you get from him. And then, the pass rush plan piece, he'll stall out as a rusher. If he doesn't kind of win with that initial move, then he kind of stalls out and you're kind of looking for more development from a plan perspective. But in getting through more tape, I also think too, from a schematic standpoint, playing within Wink Martindale's scheme, I don't want to say it did him a disservice in 2024, but I feel like he was doing stuff that wasn't. I want to see him I don't want to do a lot of games with him and like, okay, we got a 5 down front and we're dropping Josiah Stewart into coverage and we're going to have Grant kind of loop around and go one-on-one with the tackle. Same thing with Mason Graham. Like, I want him going one-on-one on the interior with guards or centers and just let him play in a one gapping front and just go. And I think he can anchor well enough. I don't think he's the run defender he gets made out to be, but I mean, he's a guy who offers you some pass rush upside, some run defense upside, all in this size and athleticism package that is rare from a traits piece. So yeah, I could get on board with that if he was the guy at 30. I'm still wrestling with mine right now because of kind of what you said. So the 2 for me, I'm in a very similar boat with your initial lead in. I think, defensive tackle, corner, edge are the big 3 right now at this point. I feel very comfortable I feel most comfortable, I should say, with the edges that I think would be available in round 2. That for me in round 1, I'm focused on corner or defensive tackle. And everything for me comes down to the talent cliffs for you, value proposition for me, how much I like the corners that I think will be there at 30 versus how much I like the corners at 56 or 62. And then same thing for the defensive tackle piece. In an ideal world for me, the most ideal, the most perfect, if Derek Harmon falls to 30, I would go with that. I don't think he's going to be there. I think there's a chance Kenneth Grant is there, but I feel like he might not be there either. I'm going to stick with my initial gut, and I'm not just sticking with this because I've been on it for so long. I've been a fan of this player since a week before the combine. He's gained more traction as we've gone along. I feel like he's a big bandwagon pick from a corner perspective right now. I'm going to go with Trey Amos to start. Somebody who just fits what I want the Bills to gravitate towards when it comes to a corner 2. I want somebody who can squeeze passing windows, restrict airspace, and his comfortability and effectiveness when playing press is just something I gravitate towards. And his ability to stay in phase through a combination of length and footwork, I like as well. My biggest questions on him were change of direction and long speed. I still do think there's some change of direction questions. And even though he ran like a 4.43, I don't necessarily know if he plays at that speed, but I'm not overly too concerned. And it's the combination of his ability, again, to play that press, to play man, stay in phase, but then also the zone coverage capability, his ability to fall off and collect based on the route distribution, to be able to play match coverages against a variety of body types. You're watching him cover Mason Taylor downfield against LSU, and then he's covering, kind of smaller type of scat type of receivers outside. Then he's covering your typical prototypical like X or even Z's, and he can do a lot of things from a coverage standpoint. The size and frame are intriguing. I don't think he's the most physical or, dominant run defender as a corner, but he's solid enough. He's willing, and he is technical to a degree in terms of his force and his fits. And a lot of this too comes down for me, the corners that I think will be available. If you could guarantee me, like the next person I'm about to say has some off the field stuff, which kind of muddies it. Like if you could guarantee me that like Maxwell Hairston would be there at 56 or like Savone Ravel would be there at 56, this might change my tune a little bit. And there are other corners that I like. Like I do like AZ Thomas, and I do think Ben Morrison is a fun one. And I have somebody who I really, 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 really love, who I'm not going to mention right now, that like has been climbing up my board as we've gone higher in this draft process. But I just really love Trey Amos's game, and I think how he fits as corner 2 alongside Christian Benford. And then what I think the Bills could still get from an interior defensive line standpoint based on the role I would like them to covet in round 2. So I'm going to lead off here with Trey Amos for pick 30.
Trey Amos, if it was my other choice, if I didn't go with Kenneth Grant. But what's interesting, and certainly when I get to my analysis for my pick at 56, there's a lot of parallels in the reasons why you pick Trey Amos for the reasons that I'm going to pick the corner that I'm going to pick eventually here. But if the Bills do pick a corner in the first round, I think the realistic one that you'd like to get is Trey Amos, because I think he is the most appropriate value if he were to make it to pick 30. And I do love the versatile skill set that he offers. It's funny that you mentioned that he doesn't necessarily play to the time speed. I chalk that up to, I think he loves to play from the trail and bait throws, because I
Fair.
thought there was some vertical separation, but it almost felt intentional to me, where he's like, okay, yeah, go ahead and shoot this ball down the field. I'm going to make a play on the ball.
I also think he's a smooth strider, and those type of guys who have that smooth of a gait, it makes me feel like, are you like not really running? Like, I remember one of my notes, like I was like, does he not? Yeah, yes.
Sauce is like that, yeah.
Yes, but then you see him stay with guys, and it's like,
yeah,
oh, okay, I guess it's fine. So some of it's the stride and then the trail piece. That's a good call.
But I would love that selection. And I think the Bills will like his story as well, as a Louisiana Sun Belt player that levels up and proves it in the SEC, which is exactly what Osiris Torrance did with Louisiana to Florida. So I think this is a very realistic player. That the scenario that I'm preparing myself for is literally Kenneth Grant to be there at 30, in addition to Trey Amos, and the Bills picking Trey Amos. I feel like that's kind of a buzzy trajectory for this pick, but it makes a lot of sense. And I mean, I hope it happens. Like that would be a scenario that I'd be very, very satisfied with, because I do think you're getting appropriate value, where I just don't know if that would be the case for other corners in this range.
Yeah, that's where I'm at. Like, I draw the line. There was times where I've kind of flirted back and forth with, okay, like if they had to go corner at round 1, would I be happy if it was literally anyone else other than Amos? And the two that I came around most with were Ravel and Hairston. But Hairston's got some size and frame and tackling concerns that bother me, aside from off the field. Like, I want to put that out there so people know that we're aware of it, but also, like, I don't know if there's fire to that smoke, what the interview process has been like. So all we can do, like we talked about earlier, is just grade what the tape is. But some of the size and frame and tackling stuff concerns me a bit. Ravel is somebody who I like, and this is a personal preference type of thing, but I think it shows on the tape. High cut guys in general kind of scare me. And then how high cut he is as a corner, I think that you see him not kind of be able to sink the hips at times at the top of breaks, and it leads to separation. These pockets of separation get created against him because he is a high cut guy. But on the inverse of that, he's got this long stride that allows him to kind of, make up ground if he does get beat or separation does occur. Those are the other two corners that I flirted with. Like, would I be comfortable with these guys in round 1? And I've got to the point where if it was one of them, I wouldn't hate it. But if it's not Amos in round 1, I would probably not look corner. It's kind of where I've settled now at this point.
I tend to agree with that. Yeah. Other corners, just figure it out in the second round. Amos, or, I mean, of course, Janae Barron, if he hits the 30. So we'll see. I don't know. I think that guy's going to go in the top 15, but
yeah. I'm interested to see what he becomes. Like, if there is do teams view Barron as an outside guy who can live on the outside? I hope
so. He had his best year as an outside corner this past year. Let's play him there.
Good. I would love him to go to like a team that, like, I think of what the Cardinals do with their DBs, and I'd love him to go to like a team like the Cardinals that does like just goes dime a bunch and is doing crazy things with Budda Baker and Garrett Williams, and like see what Barron could do as inside, outside, dime linebacker, all this stuff. But yeah, his tape of him playing on the outside this year, and then what you could do again with him on third downs, I feel like that. I think he's an outside corner who can do the creative schematic things, which is such a fun option. Yeah, I don't see him falling, but is there, I'll say this and then we'll move on to the round 2 guys. Is there anyone you would trade up for in round 1? And if you did, like, how close would it? Is it like, okay, if Barron's there at pick 20, or I'm just throwing out names for people. If Michael Williams is there at like 20 or something like that, is there anybody for you that you would be like, okay, I'll trade up, or are you cool just sitting no matter what?
So what did Charles Robinson come out today and say? That if Barron gets to 21, that the Bills could trade up with Pittsburgh, and the deal would be 30. It would be 21 and 83 for 30 and 56. I'd do that for Barron at 21.
I would do that too.
So 30 and 56 for 21 and 83. I do that.
That's not bad at all.
Yeah,
I would do that. Yeah, you get a third. You lose one of your seconds, but you move up. You get Barron. You get a third.
And
Yeah.
you still have 3 picks in the day 1, day 2, right?
Yes. You still have 3 picks in the
Yeah.
top 83. And the strength of this draft is,
Right there.
in my opinion, between rounds 2, 3, and like the start of 4. So you're still in the meat and the crux. You can still address other things. Yeah, I would do that.
And you still have 109 and 132 if you wanted to trade up into the 3rd round again, do that Dawson Knox trade.
Yeah,
so like I like that. The other thing is less complicated. My willingness to move up in the 1st round is connected to how high up does 109 get me, and the math on that, and the math on that says about pick 26.
That's fair.
So that would be my appetite, and I can understand like there's some teams with similar needs right around the Bills, so I could understand how that would be a useful trade up.
Yeah.
So that's my trade up appetite for the Bills in round 1.
That's fair. I'm in a similar boat. I'm also torn again, like kind of just over my overall philosophy with how inexact of a science the draft is. I prefer as many swings at the plate as possible. So I like to keep all of like the picks. But if you can, in a draft like this where you have so many day 3 guys, I don't mind, or day 3 picks, I should say, I don't mind trying to sacrifice some of that capital to get more day 2 picks or move up slightly in round 1. So yeah, if Barron was there in the early 20s, or I'm going to assume if somebody's there that you really like at 25 or 26, I'm comfortable doing that. I don't want to sacrifice too much just because, again, the inexact nature of everything. And I don't want to put too many eggs in one basket, even though it's a different situation. It kind of I'm hesitant of all time. Von Miller, all the eggs in that basket broke. Look what happened. I don't know. I'm just sketched out. Any other thoughts on round 1 before we move on to round 2?
No, I think we see it pretty similarly. And I think this is where it gets interesting because now you're kind of getting away from the 1st round, and maybe there's some personal flavor that'll trickle into these picks. Yeah.
Yes. So let's move on to round 2 where, there is some personal flavor that could kind of trickle in here. And I also think an interesting piece as well. So what I want to do here, let's talk about pick 56 first. You do your pick 56. I'll do mine. Then we'll go to 62. What I do think is interesting here, and I kind of want to ask you this question before you give your answers, because the Bills, right, as of right now, don't have another pick between 62 and 109. Does that kind of influence you at all in your preference in terms of like reaching for somebody? Like, is there somebody who you think like, man, this guy has a higher ceiling, but I think he's more of like a round 3 type of guy. I think he's a guy that I wouldn't really necessarily initially take at 62, but because they have to wait so long, screw it, I'll take it. Is there kind of those are there more reach possibilities for you at 62 because there's that gap between that and 109?
Yeah, probably so. But I think this is where you can talk yourself into trading out of 30, trading back. There's a good chance that Trey Amos is not there at pick 30 or Kenneth Grant. And we're really kind of ciphering through the prospects that you and I would probably say, yeah, you wouldn't love him at 30. Right. And I think that's what we liked about Grant and Amos is it's like, okay, yeah, that would be you feel like you're getting a 1st round player. I think there's a good chance the Bills won't get a 1st round player at pick 30. And that's why trading out makes a lot of sense to me because that would potentially fill in that void of, you said 62 to 109. That'd get you back in the 3rd round. Brandon Beane's never not had a 3rd round pick, by the way.
Good point.
And every time that he entered a draft not having a 3rd round pick, he got one back. And it's happened 3 times. So he wants to pick in the 3rd round. He's going to. And so I think you could, just like last year's trade back with KC, that got them the 3rd round pick that they traded away for Rasul Douglas. Yeah. Right. So move back from 30. If certain players aren't there, you don't want to trade away from, there's certain players you don't want to trade away from.
Yes.
But move back, get yourself that 3, and then you kind of fill in that void, and you're still wind up with probably a similar player to what you would have got at 30. Plus you have now 3 picks, or well, I guess it would be 4 picks on day 2.
Yes. The scenario that I keep thinking that I would like from a value perspective. I love the idea of like, again, just making up spots, but if you can trade back from like 30 into like, from literally 30 into like the mid 30s or late 30s and then get a 3rd rounder, I'm like, I'm all about that.
It's the Saints at 40. They got to come up and get their quarterback. Go to 40. I'd do it.
Let them do it. Oh, you guys want Jackson Dart? Cool. Here you go. But the chaos of like, the perfect storm scenario, I think, of Kenneth Grant being there at 30 and the Bills trading out of it. Just the doom that would exist with the fan base for like the 2nd year in a row, a trade back and their number 1 guy on the board. I just think of like this perfect storm of chaos that would result if that happened. But from a brass tacks perspective, I would take it. Like, give me that third pick, especially if you got like a handful of dudes and okay, we're okay if we think these guys will still fall. Maybe the value isn't right here. I think that's a very, very fair point. Yeah, but this day 2 is really interesting. Even as just as it sits right now with the Bills at 56 and 62. So you led off with Kenneth Grant being your start to this draft at pick 30. Now we're sitting here. It's pick 56. What do you got here as we continue to build out your perfect Buffalo Bills draft class in 2025?
This might be a little bit of a surprise, but it's my personal flavor.
Okay.
And this is the spot where I want to pick the corner.
Okay.
And you talked about picking Trey Amos because of some of the signals it would give you about how the Bills could use him and what it means for the coverage schemes and maybe being a little bit more aggressive and tighter in coverage. Well, that's exactly why I'm going to go with the corner that I'm picking here.
Okay.
Jacob Parrish.
Oh, yeah. Okay. I love it. I'm on board. Okay.
Jacob Parrish out of Kansas State for two primary reasons. Number one, I love Jacob Parrish. I think he's a freaking good football player. He's young.
Okay.
He's just turned 21 in February. My comp for him is DJ Reed. And
I like
Kansas State as well. So you kind of get that parallel. But, you know, a player that some people might get lazy and say, oh, this is a nickel. And it's not. He wasn't a nickel corner at 3 years at Kansas State. He's played on the outside. And people think he's small. He's not small. He's just a little short. He's 191 pounds with 31-inch arms. Yeah, he's just a tick under 5'10". So he's just a little short.
There against Oklahoma State and against Arizona, two teams with big wide receivers. He battles against them. He makes plays like he can live on the outside. I love that you see that. I'm sorry, continue. I'm very excited right now.
No, 100%. Yeah, it's a lazy take. But so I love him, and he's a corner with a wrestling background. So surely Sean McDermott's going to love that. But so the player aside, I love the player. Sticky, right? That's also this dude in man coverage is sticky. And you want to take the air out of routes, get yourself Jacob Parrish. Okay, he can do that. The other piece is what this would mean schematically. You know, if the Bills were to invest a pick like this in Jacob Parrish, they're telling us that they're going to play tighter, right? You'd be silly. You're not drafting Jacob Parrish for him to sit in the half turn and play cover 3, man. You know, like you want to get in the face of guys. You want him to play mirror and match. He's a physical downhill player as well that can tackle. You want to tap into all the things that he would bring. So I love the player, but I also love what the player would mean for the scheme. And so if you're going to wait on the corner, boy, give me this guy. I mean, there's other guys I'd be happy with, but realistic, I think you can get him at 56. I'd be over the moon if that's the direction the Bills went with their high pick at corner.
Oh man. So I posted him being like one of my guys that I love. And I think you commented like last week. I was saying, well, I think we talked about Parrish a little bit. Yeah, it was on Twitter when that happened. He's somebody who I came on to 3 weeks ago, as I was kind of finishing corner. And initially when I watched him, he was like, my perfect hope was, okay, you take a corner on day 1 or day 2. And then this was before Trey White, even though I don't think that necessarily holistically changes how you should view the corner room. But my thoughts going into this draft at that time was get yourself a corner early, get yourself another corner on day 3. And my perfect, like my dream scenario was Amos at 30 and then Jacob Parrish at like 109. And then as I started going forward, I was like, I don't think he's going to be there in round 4. And then I watched more and I was like, okay, you'd have to get a 3rd round pick. And now, so I literally have in my notes written here for the 2nd round. I wrote, if they go CB at 56 or 62, you know, in it's the most ideal world, maybe potentially Savone Ravel or Maxwell Hairston fall. But my ideal target based on evaluation plus realistic shot of being there is Jacob Parrish. I just
trust it, brother. Trust it.
The tape. And so those who don't know, Joe gave some pieces for him. So yeah, so 5'10", 191 pounds, 4'3", 540, good explosion and speed testing as well. 88th percentile in the broad jump, 72nd percentile in the vert, 75th percentile for his 10-yard split. Somewhat shorter arms, but not too short. He's in the 28th percentile for arm length. My comp for him, because of the inside, outside, and the tenacity, they're not the same body type or the same necessarily like frame fit. I mean this in a very, very positive way. I keep calling him a poor man's Trent McDuffie. but Trent McDuffie's an all-pro corner, so a poor version of that.
Trent McDuffie wishes he had Jacob Parrish's length.
That's fair.
Jacob's got him by 2 inches.
Yeah, I was saying McDuffie's got him and McCreary are both like the T-Rex arms kings in that draft class. The first game I watched of his was against Arizona State, and watching him fit on duo and stick Scattaboo in the hole. The first time he gets
different. That's different.
He fits the first time he fits him. It's chest on knee, beautiful formed up tackle, gets him. He's down. The second one, it's a 3rd and 1, and he meets him at the line and drops him like full body, shoulder into same leg, same shoulder, bang, pops him, drops him down. I think Scat falls forward and gets the first down by like a half an inch, but Parrish popped him, and it like perked me up big time. And I just kept watching more and more and more. The inside-outside versatility, just everything that he brings. I also like he's got good feet. He's got calm, quiet feet. He's got a good kick step even when he's in off and he's kind of like backing up and playing zone a little bit. His ability to locate the football. I feel like in my notes I kept writing like physical and tenacious over and over. Real twitchy, good breaks on the ball. He drives and he closes quickly. And then, like you put him in press and the athleticism and the feet translate. Like he can soft shoe press all day, but then he also likes physicality. So he'll give you a true press. He'll jam you. Like he'll stick a hand or two right in your chest. So you got to chop him off to get him off you, but then he's still right there in your pocket and in phase and attached to you. I like his tape so much. The biggest concerns I have for him are, and again, I hate going with this because it's like, oh, it's because he's smaller. It's necessarily not. Bigger bodies at times give him issues on blocks and in the breaks and routes. Like there's times where bigger receivers kind of like go through him at collision points and he goes down a bit. And then every once in a while in his footwork, I call it like he double clutches at times when planning and driving. Like he'll be in like a pedal and he drops, and instead of just like sinking the hips and going, it's almost like he bang, bang, and then goes forward, but then there's good explosion coming out of it. He's one of my favorite players in this entire class. I love him tremendously. And this is, he's crept up. So I'm going to finish my corner rankings and put it out either tomorrow or probably Thursday morning or afternoon. He's crept his way significantly into my top 10. I just need to figure out where. I just love his game so much.
Sounds like he should be pretty high. You just salivated over this guy for like 5 minutes.
He's so good. It's just, and you don't get that type of, it's the coverage ability with like the ability to play the run. And I feel like it gets used so much because like, oh, you're talking about him as a good run defender. That means because like he can't cover. Like, no, he can cover, and fit in the run is friggin' important now in football, especially when you're trying to play these two high structures like the Bills doing. Cool. You want to play some cover two? That means that cloud corner is your force defender on the outside. He got to come up and fit the run. And you're going to play these teams that want to run duo, and they want to get that outside corner to be the unblocked guy and let their running back bounce it. Cool. Can your running back outside, can your corner outside come up and stick somebody? Parrish can stick anybody. Like, it doesn't matter how big they are. Oh, man, yeah. Oh, I like that a lot. I'm super happy that you said Parrish, man.
Oh, I think we're good here. I mean, sounds like we both love this one at 56.
That's a good pick. I like that. Well done. All right, so I'll go with my 56. So again, I went with Trey Amos at 30. So here is where I'm looking for interior defensive line. Now, at this point, you talked about it with Kenneth Grant. Like, obviously, you want somebody who's, a run defender, but you want somebody who can still, penetrate, make plays behind the line, and still obviously get somebody who can still be some semblance of, or have some semblance of effectiveness, I should say, in rushing the quarterback. In a super, super ideal world, I'm going to talk out of both sides of my mouth a little bit here. If Tyleik Williams fell, I'd be all over this. I don't think he's going to fall. Even with the injury concerns, I love Tyleik Williams, what he is as a run defender from a physicality standpoint, but also from a block recognition and scheme understanding standpoint. I love, like, you watch, like, the guard in front of him is pulling. He's immediately getting his eyes to the tackle, and he recognizes the scheme. He flows down the line, makes the stop. Like, he's a very heady player, in addition to being a mountain of a man, physical, violent inside. Not the best pass rusher, but I think he has more athleticism and juice than he gets credit for. Not like Kenneth Grant, but he can create some knockback. He can compress the pocket or compromise the depth of the pocket a little bit, but he's still primarily a run defender. All that being said, if he fell, I'm jumping at him at 56. I don't think he's going to fall. Also somebody who I'd be very interested with at 56 is Darius Alexander from Toledo. I don't think he's going to be there either. I initially thought of him like, okay, the length and the size and what he can do as a pass rusher, but he was a much better run defender than I thought he was going to be. I know the game I keep going to, I know Mississippi State isn't a power, but they're still a team with the SEC and some size and talent on the offensive line. And watching him drop the knee and anchor as a run defender inside really got me excited for what he could be. I think he's better as a 3 tech and primarily in that role, but with his size and length and frame and what the Bills have done primarily at 1 tech, I could see him being a 1 for the Bills. He's at 305 pounds. They had Daquan shed weight to be basically between 307 and 310 for his tenure here with the Bills. So I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that he, plays 1 and him and Ogunjobi, who Ogunjobi can play some 1 a little bit, although I think he's more of a 3 as well. But I think you could get by this year, still have some effectiveness geared more towards penetration. And then you have Alexander being the 3 next year if Ogunjobi doesn't come back or whatever. I think both of those guys would be really fun. I don't think they're going to be there. So my pick at 56, based on need and the most realistic option, I think, Alfred Collins from Texas. Now, I'll start with the negative because this is what concerns me the most. There's just not really anything from a pass rush perspective with Alfred Collins. He's got this spin move that he just doesn't do he just stands in place as he spins. He doesn't go anywhere with it. There's not a lot of plan, moves, skill set, anything from a pass rush perspective. It's more of, okay, can I use my very long arms and just knock somebody back and kind of do something with that? So you're not going to get a ton of pass rush pop from Alfred Collins. But what he is as a run defender, prototypical 1 tech, textbook stack and shed, the hand placement, the violence in his hands, the pop in his hands, and just with those extremely long arms, 85-inch wingspan. It's the second largest for any defensive tackle measured at the combine in the last 3 years. And his arm length is the 7th largest for any defensive tackle measured in the last 3 years. And he plays to it. Power, leverage, strength inside. He's just chucking dudes to the ground left and right when he's shedding them, like chucking tackles and guards. The violence on the inside. He's just an ass kicker against the run. And what he could bring from a force multiplier standpoint. This is the way I kind of reason it, okay, because you're not going to get a ton of pass rush pop. But I think what he could do in terms of helping the Bills defense from a light box perspective is, I think, it's a bit of a force multiplier aspect. And so you're playing numbers and coverage, you're relying on the other 3 guys to kind of generate some pass rush. But just, what he does against the run, against the ground game, just limit everything for him is just, he's limiting displacement and he's literally throwing guys out of gaps while not getting moved out of his. I think he's a real plus run defender. If he was just average as a pass rusher, I think he'd be a first-round player, solid. If he was just average, he's unfortunately, in my estimation, below that. But I think he fills a niche role, which could help them now and beyond. So he would be my pick at 56 based on his skill set and the realistic nature that he's there.
What I love about Alfred Collins is how much I think the rest of the front 7 in general could benefit from him.
Yeah.
Obviously the Bills like to play light boxes, but they also play with a lot of lighter players on the second level. I mean, where, Taryn's going to have to fill the B gap at times. Terrell Bernard's not big. He's 220, low 225, something like that. Milano's not huge. And so I think when you have this type of presence that, not only is a space eater that can occupy blocks and be firm, but, really allow those guys to run to the football, I think you're going to get more out of those players. And like you said, not a huge pass rush profile, but if you do want to have him as the guy that can kind of cave and create lanes and angles for other guys, I think he can be a pocket pusher to get some value there. While, he's not going to be a good 1v1, beating guys. I think he can help the rest of the rush group at times. Of course, 2 minute, you're not putting this guy on the field, but there's situations where he can help you. He's not a complete lost cause on passing downs. I wonder if the Bills are in on him. I don't, you know what I mean? I wonder, but
he's a guy that, again, doesn't necessarily fit the profile from a style standpoint, because they want, again, if it needed to put in perspective, they're getting displaced left and right last year on the interior, and you have Ilianku sitting there. They didn't care. They were like, no, give me Quentin Jefferson, give me Jordan Phillips, give me the pass rush over the run defense, which is why, again, someone like Darius Alexander, I think fits their profile, even though people will be like, but he's only 305. He's more of a 3, but the Bills would play a guy like that at 1.
Yeah. Josh Farmer, I think, is another guy that really fits the Bills in terms of their 1 tech preferences.
Yeah, I agree. Farmer's a guy who I I like him, but I have more of a hard 3 on him, but I can understand him creeping into the second round because, again, you have that gap between 56 and 62 and 109, and I describe Josh Farmer as being literally like a battering ram with arms attached to it. I just think of like what the orcs tried to do in the second Lord of the Rings, where they're trying to bash down, you battering ram forward, back, and that's just what Farmer is. This linear straight line, get off explosion. He's going to run through you, and it's terrifying when it happens. He plays like King Kong.
35-inch arms, man.
Yep. Long arms, which fits the profile they like. It can anchor a bit, but also can get some penetration and some juice. I do think, he is, he's in that realm as well for them. All right. I like where we're at right now. I like the Parrish pick. I kind of don't want to do anything after that because my excitement will not.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like that was we peaked right there. I was like, I don't know. The rest of the show is not going to be that good.
There's nowhere to go but down.
I think you might have been a little surprised that I did that. So
I don't get it. It's cool to see again because I keep my head in the sand on like everyone's analysis. Like I'm not consuming any draft content aside from watching tape and doing my charts and evaluations and building out my board. So all these thoughts I have are to myself. And so I'm sitting here having conversations with myself at midnight, watching Kansas State versus Oklahoma State. And I'm like, man, I really like Jacob Parrish. I think he's going to be in my top 10. And I'm like, is that crazy? But I don't have anyone to talk to about it because I don't want to be spoiled. So it's cool to see someone who I respect organically be in that realm with me. And it was super cool. I was very, very pleased with that. All right. So we've gone 30 and 56. We've each gone corner and defensive tackle. And now we sit here at pick 62 for the Bills, their second pick in round 2. What do you got for pick 62?
AP, I want upside. That's what I'm looking for. I want these defensive players to not only help the Bills evolve schematically, but have a ceiling that's exciting to develop into, not baseline and you can get a solid player. I want chances to get some real impact guys. And so we're going to take a swing here. And maybe this is a player that kind of fits into the pitfall that you were talking about, where maybe you'd rather pick him in the third, but you're kind of without the third. So you kind of have to pick him a little bit higher.
I think your answer is what my answer is. I'm sorry, continue. I think I kind of want to guess it.
You can guess it. I'll tell you.
Is it Oladejo?
Oh, brother. Oladejo. UCLA. The ceiling here is just really high. It's 6'3", 260, 33 and 3/8 on the arm length. This guy played stack backer for up until 2 games into the season this year. And he goes and he transitions down to playing on the edge. And what this guy showed in, the back 10 games or whatever of the season is just really, really tantalizing. And it's about upside. I mean, what's very impressive, what he put on tape. He's quick. He's long. He's bendy. He's got power at the point of attack. He's got a dense build. I think he might have the best motor in the class. I think that maybe Josiah Stewart and Ty Robinson and maybe even Tyreek Williams might have something they want to say about the motor. But this guy's off the charts, man. An unrelenting football player. And, of course, he's a work in progress. He's not even played a season on the edge. But that's what I love about him as the idea here. That the need that the Bills have on the edge is not really about anything right now.
Yeah,
it's about Joey Bosa as an expiring contract and AJ Epinesa as an expiring contract. And the Bosa thing's going to go one or two ways. It's either going to not work and the Bills are not going to want him back, or it's going to work and he's going to hit age 31 in free agency with his last chance to get a big deal, and he's going to go get a big deal. And it's not going to be from the Bills. So it's a 1-year thing with Bosa. Epinesa, is he going to get a third contract from the Bills? You know what I mean? Is like a perfectly fine, like rotational fourth defensive end. Is that a 3-contract player? So I'm thinking about this guy really for 2026. And this is the type of player that, I mean, if this guy spent his entire college career on the edge, we might be talking about Micah Parsons or Jalen Walker. Right? So let's go ahead and pull the trigger here at the end of the second round. Even if it's a redshirt year, but I feel confident this guy could play teams.
Yeah,
I mean, Javon Solomon was like a 4-phase teams player. Surely this guy could be. He's actually played in space.
Yep.
So it's all about ceiling and upside, a swing, athletes, potential high impact. That's what this comes down to for me. And is it early? Maybe, but I don't care, man. I love the guy.
So I really don't have too much to add. You essentially said everything. It's funny. It's funny too, because some of what you said, you and I talked about when I was last on Locked On with you, and we talked about that Bosa proposition. Like if the two likely outcomes, he either balls out and gets back to form, and then he leaves on probably like a 2-year, $36 million, 2-year, $40 million deal that the Bills aren't bringing him back on, or he gets banged up again. And then if you're the Bills, do you really want to dip back into that water again next year?
Right.
And then AJ Epinesa is a UFA next year. You've got like just this interesting edge grouping that technically on paper, you don't need anyone for 2025, but you kind of do because, what are you getting out of Solomon? Hoyt's got that suspension. You've got AJ Epinesa, but then next year, even more so, like you said. And for a guy who, moved from off-ball backer to edge mid-season, you let him continue to simmer and develop a little bit. What I really liked about his tape was watching him be able to put things together and learn on the fly in games, but also through the season. Like watching him play edge in his week 2 or 3 when he first started versus watching him play edge towards the end of the year, the difference in recognition and angles and understanding, like there was real practical application to him starting to understand how to play the edge position from a mental standpoint. That gave me a ton of hope. So I was like, it's not just traits. Like this is an example of a guy and you could see it in games. Like he'd get beat on a run or a play early in the first quarter and a team would come back to it in the third and wouldn't happen again. Or he'd get beat on that concept in week 2 or 3. They'd run it early in week 8 or week 9, not getting beat anymore. And then you add that with just the length, the strength, the power, the pad level, 82nd percentile for his vertical jump, 72nd percentile for the broad jump, 45th percentile for arm length. There's just explosion and athleticism within his game. They also did some really cool stuff with him at UCLA, similar to what the Rams did with Hoyt, like that spinner type of role where you're lining him up, inside in the A gap, or they're lining him head up on the center. I also think from an athleticism standpoint, he fits in very nicely with, I'm a huge fan of simulated pressures and creeper pressures, as you know. Now you got this really fun outside, player at edge who you can do some spinner stuff with, but also is functional enough as a low hole player or a spot dropper at certain elements for, creepers and sims. I really like his game. And then even just the technicality of him throwing that cross chop that he does. And it varies in effectiveness, but him throwing it, the timing was good. And then as the season went on, he got more effective with it. And you do need to see more development from a plan perspective with the pass rush or his pass rush arsenal. But I just have faith. I do have faith that will happen as he moves forward because he is so new to the position. And you saw real tangible improvement from him in this past year. And and like you said, I love the idea of he's the perfect guy to let simmer and let sit for a year, continue to learn and develop, play here and there as you need him to. And then 2026, you really let him hit the ground running. And also, like you said, he's a guy who I have more of a 3rd round grade on him, but because of the upside and because of the big gap between 62 and 109, he's somebody that I shot up my board a bit and would have no problem with taking him at 62. The only other edge that I have there who I really like, but I think there's a chance he probably goes before. I do like JT Tuimoloau from Ohio State.
Yeah.
And he also fits their mold, like power, compression, plays the run, but he's not, what I like about him is he's not completely stiff. There is some lower body flexibility and movement to his game. There is some juice that pairs with that power, which is why he's so effective as a speed to power guy. He's got some length with him. He's got some hand usage. I like that you have that level of competition that he's faced for years at Ohio State, the effectiveness that he had within that defense. I like his play style. I think his play style fits in with what the Bills like. I think there's a chance he's there at 62. And if he and Oladejo are both there, it's a bit of a fight in my heart, but I really do think he's going to be gone ahead of there. I think his floor is like a high-end edge 3, and I think his ceiling is like a mid or a high-tier edge 2, which is awesome, and that just makes me think he's going to go earlier than 62.
I wrestled with that as well. My short list for edge was JT Tuimoloau out of Ohio State and Landon Jackson as well. And I'm like, those guys they're not getting to 62.
Yeah.
Like I got to be real here.
Yep.
So that's why
Same.
I was like, I got to go with Oladejo, and I can, get onto this soapbox about upside. So
yeah, that's fair. Yeah. I like to mention it for like, the most ideal, but I don't think it's going to happen. And I like that we're interesting on the same page. I like it. All right, let's.
So was that your pick for 62?
Yeah, Oladejo.
Okay, so we were aligned there. All right,
Yep,
so you went corner D tackle, I went D tackle corner, and then we both landed there. That's fun.
Yep, I like that, and I do think that, not just kind of patting ourselves on the back, but I do think that makes a lot of sense. I could see the alternating either way. It could be corner D tackle, could be D tackle corner. I think that could happen either way. I think edge makes the most sense with that third pick and the first three picks that they got, just based on who's going to be there. And I think Oladejo has a very realistic shot of being there. And then you pair him with the need and everything. I think that could be a slam dunk pick. Oh, I like that. Yeah, I like that we're on the same page there. All right, now let's pick, or anything else on day 2 before we move to day 3.
I'm good.
Cool. All right, now we're going to move to day 3. Because of the wealth of picks that the Bills have on day 3, we're going to talk about day 3 more in terms of high level, broad, like kind of the positions we'd like addressed. We will, mention some specific players if there's really anyone on our mind that we really gravitate towards. But this is more of a high level discussion on day 3, because I don't want to keep Joe here for 4 hours while we break down every single possible pick the Bills have. So, Joe, when it comes to day 3, where's your head at in terms of the Bills kind of bringing home your, perfect or ideal draft class for them here in 2025?
Yeah, we got boxes to check here on day 3. And I think a lot about filling out the roster and roster ability and just some holes that exist that are not glaring, but stuff that's worth talking about. So I'll give you my inventory and I'll try to shoot some names in along the way here. I would like to see the Bills add a receiver, and a meaningful receiver in terms of skill set. I want speed. I love for them to get a field stretcher, and based on the guys they've been meeting with, that's clearly what they're looking at. They're looking at day 3 speed receivers.
Yep.
But you can't just be a fast guy, man. That doesn't do anything for me. You got to be able to do something else. Of course, you got to be fast and track the ball down the field and give a legitimate vertical receiving skill set. But there has to be something else, because or else you're Marquez Valdes-Scantling, and you're just not rosterable. You can't just be the guy that runs down the field. You have to play teams, or have a return value, be a physical blocker. So I'm looking for a receiver that can win down the field and then either provide return upside, because I don't think Brandon Codrington is safe on this team.
Fair.
And I think he's a good player. I think it's a great trade for the Bills, but I think in Sean McDermott's heart, he hates that there's nothing else that he gives. Like even towards the end of the year, they were moving towards Johnson and Davis on kick returns. You can't just be a punt returner.
Yep.
Like there's no value on playing corner. He doesn't cover kicks and punts. You can't just be a punt returner.
Yeah, it's tough.
So if you give me a field stretcher that can also be the punt returner, hi, Torrey Horton out of Colorado State.
That's one of mine for day 3.
Hi, come on down. You can come do this. That'd be great. We'll trade 109 and 132 to get you at 85, right? That'd be perfect.
Fair, yeah.
Or like an Isaac Tesla out of Arkansas that I think vertical receiving ability, I have all the confidence in the world. Yeah, might be the best blocking receiver in the class, but also I have total confidence in his ability to cover kicks and punts and block on kicks and punts. So that's valuable. That's talking about wide receiver 5, like beautiful. I need that.
Yeah.
I think the Bills need a tight end 3. I think they need to draft a tight end 3 that's going to make this roster. Quentin Morris has kind of been that guy, and maybe he's the fallback. Like if the draft doesn't go a particular way, he'll come back to Buffalo. But I think Q's probably looking for an opportunity, right? Like,
fair.
He's been a great 4-phase special teamer. He gets on the field a little bit, catches some crazy touchdown every single year. But I think that right now it's Zach Davidson. Zach Davidson's entering year 5. The dude hasn't done anything in the NFL. I know he's a fun training camp preseason guy, and that's great. Maybe he'll be awesome, but he's uncompeted with right now to be the tight end 3.
Yeah.
So draft some tight end that I think gives you inline ability, but has a special teams profile. Some names I like: Mitchell Evans out of Notre Dame. I like Thomas Fedone out of Nebraska. All right, so you like him too. Those are some. the UCLA kid, the kid name's hard to pronounce, Motivalo.
Yeah, I give up. I've said so many names wrong this cycle.
Yeah,
His
dude,
name
it's
is the
bad.
one I'm going to go with.
So those are some names that I like at the tight end position. I want a defensive tackle double dip. I talked earlier about what this rotation looks like right now. Give me one, give me two. And I'd love though, the guy I really love, give me Ty Robinson out of Nebraska.
Oh.
I think he's tailor-made for the Dwan Smoot, Shaq Lawson role, where he can, play the 5 tech on rundowns and then reduce inside and rush. And the guy's a war daddy, man. Just a player that, like, from a play demeanor standpoint, you'll just love the way he plays. So I'd love that type of player to be added, especially if they go with more of a nose tackle. I think that type of player. So give me the defensive tackle double dip. I'd love to draft a linebacker that can bump Balin Spector off this roster.
Good call.
And give them even more intriguing depth. If this is Milano's last year, I think Dorian Williams is in line to be the starter in 2026, but I'd like there to be some good competition there and depth, right? Like Dorian Williams has had to play a lot, so somebody needs to be Dorian Williams if Dorian Williams is now going to be a starter.
True.
So that's a box I'd love to check. I'd love to get an interior offensive lineman, maybe get ahead of some needs there. Connor McGovern, David Edwards, both expiring contracts. Did not love what Mr. McGovern said to you and Eric Turner there at the end of the episode. Had some contract discussions. Those have been tabled. Would love to stay in Buffalo, but business is business. It said he left money on the table to come to Buffalo originally. Look at the center market, man. Look at what Cam Jurgens just got, $17 million a year. Drew Dahlman got
Dahlman
14 a year.
For me.
McGovern's better than those guys. Or he's at least in the ballpark, right? This is probably every bit of a 14,
still the ability
15.
to get like 10, 11 mil, 12 mil a year, like with what the market's been. And the salary cap keeps going up. So there's a chance he could be at that next year.
Well, and then so you have Edwards and McGovern on the last year of their deal, and then you have Osiris Torrance, who's extension eligible after this year.
Yep.
And the guard market is booming.
Crazy. Last year and this year. Everybody's getting paid out of control.
So he could push $20 million a season. So here's what I do in interior offensive line. I say, hey, Cromer, who you want?
Yes.
Okay, cool. We'll pick that guy.
We'll get him. We got it.
Whatever one you want. That's my solution there. And then give me a punter, man. Give me a punter.
Okay.
We got Jake Camarda and Brad Robbins. Brad Robbins is the worst punter in the league in 2023. Like literally the worst punter in the league. And it's funny. I actually put out a tweet early in the season, like in 2024. I said, I think the biggest positional upgrade in the entire NFL was the Bengals going from Brad Robbins at punter in 2023 to this. It was Sam Reckow was their punter this year.
Yeah.
I said, that's the biggest positional upgrade any team's made in the league. And then he gets cut in 2024 and doesn't get another opportunity. Jake Camarda cut in 2024, doesn't get another opportunity.
Yep.
Those are the two players right now that could be the Bills punter. Get one. I don't get one in the draft. And I'd probably cut Brad Robbins, and because Camarda at least had 2 seasons of pretty good punter. I don't know if he got the yips. I don't know what happens. That's crazy to be a 4th-round punter, to be perfectly good for 2 years, and then 4 games into year 3, you're cut for performance.
Nuts.
And the next thing you know, you don't even have you don't get another chance.
I know, like that. The fact that he didn't pick up again with somebody else right away, I thought that was so
super weird.
Yeah.
But these are the guys right now,
Yeah. Not great.
So that's the piece, is the punter. So speed receiver that does something else besides vertical receiving.
Yes.
Tight end 3, double dip at D tackle, linebacker for depth with some upside. I didn't give any names there. I love Jeffrey Bassa out of Oregon.
Oh, nice.
Safety convert, matchup style backer. Pooh Ole Miss. I think he's. I don't think he's going to fit a lot of teams because of the size profile, but he's literally the same size as Terrell Bernard. Sean Dolak, Buffalo, I think is another guy. Like those types of players, like not necessarily my favorite, but they're Billsy. So they would make sense to me. And punter, that's my day 3 boxes to check right there.
I like it a lot, and this will be a decently short segment because it's essentially what I got. I still wouldn't mind them getting another corner at some point. I'll add, just because Trey is on a 1-year deal, Dane Jackson's on a 1-year deal.
Man, did you hear the way Bean talked about Dane Jackson today?
No, I did not.
Oh, brother, it was just an absolute. He said he can go on an hour about Trey White and Dane Jackson and what these guys mean, and it's so
great.
Yeah,
which is nice. Like, I'm happy that both of them came back. I think they're quality depth, good guys for the room.
Teams, like Kyrie Young didn't play teams. I thought Jamarcus Ingram was the best special teamer this team had last year.
He played well, and I like some of what Ingram did. But even if you think Trey and Dane are the answer this year, they're both on 1-year deals. Yeah. Jamarcus Ingram is an RFA next year. So your outside corner room, even if you take Amos or you take Parrish or whoever, if it's Ravel or Hairston, whoever the hell, if you take an outside corner, you need another corner. So I like the idea of them, grabbing another corner here somewhere on day 3. And then I'm hoping, I don't know, maybe they turn into another Christian Benford, so on and so forth. You get some kind of good value out of that. So I would like another corner on day 3. It really kind of depends on where you go on day 3, kind of throwing out some names. I initially thought, I thought Noah Williams would be like a solid pick in round 4. I don't think he's going to be there.
He's going day 2.
Okay, so that's fair. So yeah, and then you're sitting a lot of like, I don't mind Zy Alexander from LSU, but I prefer more like a 5th or later. But if he creeped into like the 4th, I wouldn't hate that. Dorian Strong from Virginia Tech does some fun things that I like. I also like the other Cal corner, Marcus Harris.
I haven't watched him. Yeah, I haven't watched him.
Really nice juice. Like he plays fast, good feet, physical. Him and their safety, Craig Woodson, number 2, are just out like leveling dudes, like left and right. There was a big hit initially that I thought it was Woodson, and I read the number wrong because friggin' the all-22 camera angle looks like it's from the NASA space station with how far it is, and it was 5, not 2, because Harris came over and just clocked, and I was like, oh. So Marcus Harris is somebody who I like late on day 3 from a corner perspective. Receiver, you hit it. I liked Torrey Horton 2 years ago. I watched him with Colorado State. This year, banged up, limited in some action, but you still see that vertical stretchability and what he offers. I also like that when he gets the ball in his hands, you see some of the punt returner aspects show up. He's got some shake. He can juke some guys. It's not just like, oh, he's fast, so let's get him the ball on a drag and see if he can outrun somebody. Like, he can put his foot in the ground. He can shake guys. Also has a little bit of a nastiness to him. Like, he'll plant some guys as a blocker. If you're not looking, he'll crack on a linebacker or safety. And then, the special teams value. So give me somebody that can be the field stretcher with some yards after catch / shake potential when he gets the ball, but also be the punt returner. I'm all aboard on that. I also like Kyle Williams from Washington State that I know a lot of people are high on. I just think he's going to, I mean, even to your point, Horton, though, like you mentioned the trade-up piece, I think Horton and Kyle Williams with this receiver class probably go in round 3.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah.
I don't think they're going to be there at 109, so then you got to trade up to kind of get one of those guys. And then interior O-line, you said it perfectly. Like, there's a chance we're sitting here next year and both Connor McGovern and David Edwards are both gone. And then are you starting Alec Anderson at guard? Are you starting Cedric Van Pran Granger at center? Like, what's the depth look like behind them? Even if you keep McGovern and Anderson takes Edwards' spot, okay, who's taking the Anderson spot? It'd be nice if they kind of had that guy already in the building. And I love your tap of just, you're sitting there on day 3 and being like, Cromer, it's our pick. Who do you want? Like, we're going to take an interior offensive lineman here. Grab whoever you want. I also would like another interior defensive lineman. I've been banging the drum for this guy. I would like him to cut a little bit of weight just so he stops teetering as much when he moves, but I really like Jamari Caldwell from Oregon.
Oh, I love him. Yeah. I think you get 85-90% of Tyreek Williams in him.
Wow, high praise.
Yeah,
actually, and that's not crazy.
He's a top 100 player for me. I like him a ton.
Oh, his ability to limit displacement, and like he drops that knee and it is picturesque. Like, his ability to reduce his surface area and split a double team and or anchor against it is great. And then at 330 pounds, the one that, just the movement for him, the one that really got me when they play Michigan and they sub in Orgy, super mobile, athletic quarterback. And granted, it's into the boundary, so it's not a huge run, but Orgy keeps it on like a read. Caldwell sees it and he chases Orgy down to the sideline and pops him and knocks him out of bounds. And I was like, I'm in. Sign me up. And there's so many, every time I was watching for Harmon or trying to see what, Birch was doing on the defensive line, I just kept noticing 90 and Caldwell kept popping and flashing. And I really do think he can be a quality rotational body in this league. And again, the short arms I don't love, but he just does so many other things so well that I think he can be a real quality rotational guy this year and going forward. So again, interior defensive line in general, he's a guy I would really like. Ty Robinson's a cool one that you mentioned. I remember him. I watched some tape of him obviously as well, but I remember watching Nebraska versus Colorado live, and he just ate Colorado's offense alive from the interior, from the 5, chasing down Shadur left and right. Like, War Daddy is a great way to label him. And even though he's under like 300 pounds, he's built so thick and stocky. Like, it just feels...
Dude, it's a refrigerator, and you put a helmet on top of him. That's what he is.
Bang. And he's
literally a refrigerator.
So, yeah, literally, it just, solid steel. Like, there's nothing like denting him or anything. He's just a monster of a dude. Give me that linebacker, like you mentioned. I'm on board on that as well. A couple guys that I would like later on day 3. I like Jack Kaiser from Notre Dame. I like Cody Simon from Ohio State. Just physical, downhill, better in coverage than I think he gets credit for. Not necessarily a plus guy there, but his ability to just diagnose what's happening in front of him. Granted, he's got a lot of talent playing in front of him at Ohio State, but if you turn on Ohio State tape, for as much as JTT's popping and Tyleek is popping and Caleb Downs is popping, watch 0, Cody Simon just run all over and chase things down sideline to sideline and make plays in the backfield. I like him as well. I also wouldn't hate the idea of another later developmental edge, but I don't think it's necessarily a huge need if we go there early in the first 3 picks, which I think they will. And yeah, so those are just a couple little side ancillary notes, but I was pretty much in lockstep with you for the entirety of those day 3 aspects. And it's nice that they have all the wealth of those picks. I really do think they could have addressed a lot of depth or some future things or some good special teams value. Like, there's a lot of good opportunity, I think, on day 3 for them to address a multitude of needs for 2024 and 2025, and maybe hit on some high upside guys depending on how the board falls.
It's about how many picks they actually make. It won't be 10. I don't think it'll be 10.
Yeah, I'm going with 8. I'm going with like 8 or 7. Yeah,
I would say
7
or 8. 7 or 8. Yeah,
which would be fun. I'm waiting for like some kind of a lot of just chess of they trade down and then trade up and then trade up again. So like they end up with like, oh man, they have 11 picks, and then they get that 11 shaved down to like 7, but they end up with, I don't know, like 5 picks in the first 140 or 130 or something like that, or just kind of increase the value, which would be nice.
Do that Bears trade again where you trade trade out of that pick and you wind up being like 60 spots higher or something like that. Something crazy. So
a lot of good opportunity and potential there. Anything else on your mind when it comes to this draft class or building the perfect draft for you? Anything else that you might have in your notes or anything you want to unload out of the chamber before we let you go here?
No, I think the thought I would leave with is just, I know we're excited about the draft and we all have the players we love and the ones we don't like. Let it play out. It's the Bills are picking 30. They're picking 10 times. There's going to be picks you like. There's going to be picks you don't like. There's going to be picks you don't understand. Let's see the whole picture and don't get married to any one particular outcome, because that's just a recipe for disappointment. So, and I implore you to not define the careers of these players.
Oh man.
After one season, because how many times we have to watch Josh Allen or Dawson Knox or Spencer Brown, et cetera, figure it out. Deion Dawkins, whatever player, there's been great development.
Yeah.
James Cook, Khalil Shakir, Terrell Bernard,
Christian Benford.
How long you want to go? Let's give these kids a chance, man. Give these kids a chance.
Yeah. Either way, positively or negatively. I think that the biggest thing is always that initial, someone gets drafted, this guy's can't miss, this is going to be amazing. That's too extreme. And the same thing on the other end. Oh, this guy sucks, I can't believe they took him. That's also too extreme. There, like we talked about in the lead-in, there's so many variables that goes into what a player is. And another good example right now, Keon Coleman. How many people last year he got drafted? Nope, he's this ball winner, he's going to be amazing. Nope, he can't run routes, he sucks. And then his year 1 happens, and we're having some similar conversations about him now, which I don't know why this is such a surprise for everyone. You mean to tell me this raw guy who just recently committed to playing football fully, he still needs some more development? And also he got hurt in his rookie year, which also hindered some of that development.
Yeah.
And you think he's a finished product, or everybody's ready to concrete judge him? Oh no, he's done. Write him off. What are we doing? Like, he already had a work in progress trajectory, and then he got banged up.
Right.
So if anything, he deserves more of a work in progress trajectory, but we got to take a receiver because Keon Coleman's a bust. What are we doing? And it would be the opposite. If he balled out as a rookie, everyone would be like, well, we don't need a receiver because Keon Coleman's going to be a true number 1. That's not true either. It's just, Oh, yeah.
We have the entire history of the NFL at our disposal. We can learn things if you like.
Yes.
It's all right. It's all right there.
Plenty of sample size.
Right. It's all the whole history. It's right there.
Plenty of opportunity to learn and then take that learn and put it in a practical application. Oh, yeah. But I
wanted to just be mad and yell at clouds, man.
Yeah, which is fine.
Yell at strangers, you know?
And that's how it was last year with I remember I posted a thread because I liked Keon Coleman in general. I thought he had a big range of outcomes in the NFL. If like you told me that he became a high end 2 or a low end 1, I would believe it. If you told me he was out of the league by the end of his rookie contract, I believe it. If you told me he's the guy who's living off 1-year deals because different teams keep thinking they can finally be the one to tap into him, I'd buy it. And I said that as much when the Bills drafted him. And I posted, he was my wide receiver 9. And so I had a ton of clips and I posted them on social. And I just didn't win with that post at all because I was getting yelled at from both ends. The people who thought the people who thought he was the worst yelled at me for being too high. And the people that thought he was this giant ball winner, amazing downfield guy yelled at me for being too low. And all I did was just get yelled at nonstop. Like there was nobody who was like, oh yeah, cool, even keeled. Nope. It was, I was too high and I was too low. And everyone yelled at me for like a week and a half in that post. And it was so upsetting.
Welcome to sharing football opinions on the internet.
It was the best of times. It was the worst of times. Yeah. Good times. I'm sure none of that'll happen this time with the Bills take. No, I'm sure everything will be level headed and even keeled and concrete and known right out of the gate. And yeah, we will dance with that dragon here on the show. You will obviously be diving into a multitude of everything the Bills do with all the content that you have going on there at Locked On. And Joe, you were amazing tonight. Again, I greatly appreciate you taking the time. Just in case people somehow do not know who you are or what you do or all that stuff, the floor is yours. Plug away with the multitude of projects that you are involved in.
I'll tell you what, I got a lot going on. Very lucky to have so many different opportunities. And Locked On Bills is kind of my main thing. But on my social media, on X, Twitter, at the Joe Marino, I put out a graphic today that shares all the content that I have coming up over the next few days. And it feels like a lot, but it's actually pretty much the normal week that I have. And if you look at that graphic, you'll be aware of all the things that I have going on if you want to be able to follow more of my work.
I like that. I'm literally I pulled it up right now. Let me present and share screen. Yeah, this is a packed schedule.
Right. I shared it because it's draft week, but I mean, honestly, like that's pretty much normal.
Your regular kind of day to day at this point.
Yeah. I watch football, I develop opinions, and I produce content in a lot of different places. So
I like that.
There it is.
I like that. Yeah. Very busy man, very busy schedule. And it's just, you do so much good work. It's nice to see for the volume of content that you put out, the quality is maintained across the multiple avenues that you dive into, regardless if it's solo or, whoever you're working with. There's just a lot of quality that is in everything you do. So I appreciate you as the person you are, the work that you do. And again, you taking the time. Good luck with the rest of the week, staying up late for the draft, doing all the content mixed with life. It's a hectic time. I wish you the best. Good.
Thanks. I appreciate it, Anthony. Always a pleasure talking with you. And I'm sure we'll collaborate several times between now and the time the Bills kick off this 2025 Super Bowl run.
Absolutely. I look forward to it every time we get together, whether it's here on your Locked On Bills turf. Enjoy the rest of your Tuesday. Enjoy the rest of your week. I'll see you on the socials. And appreciate you. Have a good night.
Thanks, brother. We'll see you
later. Mr. Joe Marino, tremendous guest. Really wanted to bring him in and solidify, as RJ says, Joe is a must follow. Absolutely, he is a must follow. Yeah, I wanted to, as we talked about, with on this show the past several weeks, I wanted to dive into the major positions of need, which we did several weeks ago at Edge when we had James Foster on the show. Then we dove into corner with Russell Brown. Then we dove into the interior defensive line last week with Daniel Harms. And I wanted to put a bow on all of it by having Joe on for this episode, which has been, now a bit of a yearly reoccurrence. I know for a fact we did it last year. I think we did it 2 years ago too. I think I just called it something different at that point. but it was the same idea or semblance of idea, I believe. So yeah, this has been 3 years in a row with me and Joe doing this here on the show, and his work speaks for itself. I know you folks know him and everything he does and everything I said here. So yeah, give him a follow, check out all the content, everything he does. Does really good stuff. I hope you folks enjoyed this episode. I brought this up earlier, Carl, and I answered you in the chat, but I wanted to answer it here. Again, thank you very much for being here, Carl. Thank you very much for the super chat. Carl said, Anthony and Joe, my favorite yappers. If I don't tune into the draft until Friday, do you think that I will miss anything? Will Bean start in round 2? I think there's a chance that, like I said in the chat to you, Carl, but just in case anybody didn't see, I do think there's a chance that Bean trades back out of round 1, but I think that he makes that pick in round 1. I think there's going to be somebody that's too tantalizing to pass up there in round 1 on either the interior defensive line or corner, or maybe even something wild that we're not considering based on how the board may fall. But again, Carl, thank you very much for being here, and thank you for the super chat. I appreciate that. I'm going to throw up the banner that says Toodles, folks, because we're going to start to wind down here. Actually, kidding. I'm not going to do that. We're going to talk about One Pie Pizza for a little bit. Sponsor of the show, the best pizza in Buffalo, New York. And I don't say that because they sponsor the show. They sponsor the show because I think they are the best pizza in Buffalo, New York. Sweet sauce pie, cup and char pepperoni, homemade blue cheese, a variety of toppings options that they dice up and sprinkle individually, or not individually, well, technically individually, but evenly amongst the entire pie. They also have a variety of catering options as well. They've started diving into other foods, and that stuff is just as good as the pizza is. They have a pizza that's named after the show and the brand. They also do a ton of good for the city of Buffalo and the community at large with all their different partnerships with various charities and foundations. The Alzheimer's Foundation, the SPCA, Toys for Tots, partnering with Roswell to try and knock out cancer. They do a ton of good for the city and the community at large. So go get yourself some One Pie Pizza, treat yourself and your family and your taste buds to the deliciousness that they have, and also do some good for the community and the city of Buffalo while you are at it. I hope you folks enjoyed this episode. If there was anything I didn't answer for anyone, I know some comments. I saw some comments from people saying that they came in a bit late and asking questions about different picks. I'll be putting timestamps in this episode so you can go back and kind of see what we landed on for pick 1. The round 2 stuff are the higher level conversations. I'll be putting timestamps in for anything, but if there is anything specific that you wanted answered that I didn't get to or that I didn't see, again, get at me on Twitter, pro__ant, pro2_ANT. That's the Twitter. On Blue Sky, it's pro_ant, no underscores, just PROANT. If there's anything that I didn't get to in this episode or you have a question about, I apologize for that. So get at me on social or get at me on the Discord. If you're a Cover One insider, message me. DMing me is the best way because I'll see it immediately. So if there's anything I didn't answer, get at me. I apologize for that, and I will get at it as soon as I can. I really hope you folks enjoyed this episode. It was nice having Joe on again and having this conversation. It was cool seeing all the engagement with you folks, with each other in the chat, with myself and Joe, the questions, thoughts, comments, concerns, all that stuff that I was able to catch and see. This is a really fun conversation. It's a really fun time of year. I appreciate you, Lou. Thank you very much. Lou, I see you on Blue Sky all the time. You're awesome. I appreciate you, Lou. And thank you very much for being here and watching. And thank you for the kind words. That's very nice to hear. I appreciate that. Yeah, fun time of year. A lot of content coming out this week. I will be doing a post-draft show each day and night with Greg Thompson. So once round 1 is done, Greg and I will be going live Thursday night, late Thursday night. As soon as round 2 is done, Greg and I will be going live Friday night. Then we'll be going live at some point on Saturday to recap day 3 pieces. We'll see what Eric and I put out from a film perspective this week. Might put some stuff out Saturday. I have the day off on Friday. There's a chance I might put out something early Friday morning, depending on who the Bills pick, but there's a lot of content coming from myself as we go forward. So I am strapped in and I have coffee on deck and I am ready to not get any sleep and just have a chaotic week, but in the best way, in the most fun way possible. So I hope you folks enjoyed the content. If you did, tell your family, friends, loved ones about the show, about the channel, about the brand. If you're watching here on YouTube, whether live or post live, please, 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 and thank you. If you have not already, drop a like on this video, please. Likes are the lifeblood of these streams. If you have not dropped a like on this video already, please go ahead and do so. It goes a sincerely long way towards helping myself and the entire team. If you're listening on one of the podcasting apps or platforms, that's cool too. Please rate and review and subscribe to Disguised Coverage. Tell your family and friends and loved ones about the show, about this episode, about the brand, about the channel, all that good stuff. If you hated this episode, or if you hate this show, or you hate me, tell your enemies about all of that stuff and make them, potentially ruin their day by watching me or the show or the channel, whatever you got. I'm excited for this week. Hope you folks have enjoyed the content. Since the Bills got eliminated from the AFC Championship and I've been full scale into free agency and draft stuff, all the film breakdowns on social and all the episodes and the conversations here. I hope you folks have enjoyed all of that. Thank you for riding with me through this episode and this draft cycle. It'll continue as we go forward through the rest of the week. Keep an eye on my Blue Sky and my Twitter for communication about extra content coming this week, because there will be extra content coming this week, like I mentioned. And then, Lou, like you said, beats the heck out of being able to start preparing in October. Yeah, that used to be the life of a Bills fan, man. When the Bills would be sitting there like 1-6 or 1-7, and I'd be like, let me start putting my board together and seeing who I like come draft time. Yeah, it's a different time now with the Bills being what they are, but it definitely beats the hell out of the drought times. That is very well said. Enjoy the rest of your Tuesday night, folks. And thank you for riding with me on this episode. Whether you watch live, watch later, listen later, whatever form or fashion you consume the content in, I greatly appreciate it. The team greatly appreciates it. Thank you very much to Joe Marino for joining me. And I hope you and your family and friends and loved ones are all doing well and staying safe. Be kind to one another. Take care of one another. I will see you when I see you. Enjoy the draft. Enjoy the week. Godspeed. And as always, go Bills.